So this is the other mural, which honors all of our female veterans. And to talk smartly about that, we're going to bring in Catherine.
And we know Catherine. She was on part one. She was on part one of our show. And she is a big part of this. And there she is again. And Catherine, we're going to let you tell us what's here.
So, you know, when I decided that I really wanted to have a women's memorial wall, I wanted to illustrate that women have served in combat than just before Iraq or Afghanistan. So what we try to represent here is a lot of firsts for women. And so, but we have here, this is in Arlington, and essentially this is a 10-foot replica for size comparison of a statue for the nurses' memorial section in Arlington. Because nurses were the only ones that were allowed to join or serve in the military, so we have a lot of firsts, which were nurses. So if you see here, this actually is currently sitting in Arlington, and this is the a Spanish-American war nurse. So that's how far back I'm trying to go. This woman right here was the first military bugler. There's so much interesting things about this wall. This is the first first Sentinel soldier who guarded the tomb of the unknown.
Catherine, I'm going to move on the other side. I don't want to block the camera, so you get over here. And yes.
So she was scheduled to come, but we had to cancel because of COVID, but she was going to be here in the house. She's since retired. But she set the standard, and there's been 2 other women that have reached that goal to guard the tomb of our unknown soldier. We have members, wives that were in the military up there. We have Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman, most people just think that she was a slave runner, you know, that she tried to save the slaves, but she was also a spy for us, you know, and so she was in the military. She was a POW, she was a spy, and she started the Underground Railroad, you know, to save members, whatever. So, but if you continue down the wall, what is so interesting is what I decided to depict is we have women who were serving in our country as men because they wanted to serve the military, right? So, because women were not allowed to serve, but they wanted, if you look back, they wanted a job, they wanted to eat, they wanted a better life, and they didn't want to stay behind. So Deborah Sampson, that is her real name, she joined under an alias, not once but twice, and actually left, but she was in an elite unit. So maybe like Special Forces. She wasn't just in any unit. And the only reason why she got out is that she was wounded. She got 2 bullet holes, and they found out she was a woman. But she was able, she knew Paul Revere, which is crazy, right? She knew Paul Revere, and he helped her get the benefits.
Oh, that's great.
Which is like 26 cents a day back then, but she got back pay, okay? Dr. Mary Edwards Walker, this was so important because right now in our day and age, we have 3,010 Medal of Honor recipients in our country. How many are women? And the thing is, this woman right here, she came to the military as a surgeon saying, hey, I would like to operate and take care of our wounded. And the military said, I'll make you a nurse. She stood her ground and she says, I'm not a nurse, I'm a surgeon. So essentially, the military took her and hired her as a civilian contractor, if you will, equivalent. So she went to combat and she operated under fire in the combat zone during the Civil War. So what happened is she actually becomes a POW at one point. She was trying to be arrested because she was wearing slacks under her dress because of what she was doing. It wasn't really good to be wearing just a dress, so she wanted to wear pants. So after her service, she was awarded the Medal of Honor. And so the thing interesting about Dr. Mary Edward Walker is that a few years later, several years later, they decided to redesign the criteria of the Medal of Honor. And so she was one of about 70 people who they said, we're sorry, thank you, but we'd like the Medal of Honor back. And so there's history saying that she meted them at the door with a shotgun and said, I don't think so. And she was wearing her Medal of Honor. So Dr. Mary Edward Walker wore her medal till she died, and then they took it. It wasn't until actually President Carter reinstated it. And to this day, she is still the only woman to ever receive the Medal of Honor. Next, we have Cathay Williams. Now, I know her name as enlisted because she went in as a Williams Cathay. She switched her name, And she also went in as a man. She's known as the first Buffalo Soldier female, okay? And interesting about her is her family knew she was doing it, right? So she had 2 cousins or a brother, and they all went in, and she did not want to be left behind, and she wanted a better life, so they kept her secret. Again, she was wounded, and that's how she ended up being found out that she was a woman. And she never got her benefits. She never got her, right? So Chief Loretta Walsh, her claim to fame, I try to pick women that just meant something over time. And she's actually the first female who was able to join not only as a woman, but in a non-medical status. Because before, you could only join or serve if you were a nurse, something like that. So she became a chief yeoman, and she's recognized every year on her birthday for the Navy as the first woman to join as a woman in a non-medical status, okay? And the interesting fact about that is that she joined the reserves, right? And they asked her, say, hey, here's our deal. We want to promote you to join the reserves because we feel that if you do it, we'll get more men. So guess what? Not only did she join the reserves and get more men, they also got more women from her enlistment. Down here right now. So as we go on, we look at Ensign Ann Bertatus. She is also another nurse, but her claim to fame, which is awesome, is that she has the Legion of Merit with Combat Valor. That is unheard of. And actually, while Carrie was doing this, we came across an Army veteran who said, hey man, there's no V in Valor on that medal. And I'm like, she got one. Nope, they didn't issue Valor with that medal. I said, stand by. So I went, I did more research, and I found out that the Valor was only given, you could only receive it if you were in the Navy or the Marine Corps. Army was not eligible to receive the Valor edition, right? And since then, you've not been able to receive Valor on this Legion of Merit, except for that time period back when. So she is one of the few women who has a Legion of Merit with Valor for combat. It's awesome.
We need to go back this way a little bit, Kathy, because we have a lot of people down here.
Well, you know, what I want to look at is what is our centerpiece, right? So I was talking with Carrie, the artist, and we decided to go with this is the National Women's Memorial out of DC, which is borderline property with Arlington National Cemetery, which most people don't even know where this is. But this general right here, General Vaught, she just celebrated her 90th birthday. General Vaught went to Congress and said, hey, we need to get a women's memorial. So any woman who served, combat, non-combat, friendly, foe, anybody's allowed to join here. And she took this piece and made it a national monument for all female veterans. I'm registered there. You could go there, put my name up, you'll see my pictures and my history. And so what we're still trying to do is to gather all women who have ever served in here, because of the early times of our service, we were not really documented. We were volunteers, but we served. So she was a huge part of that. And interesting, when this was commissioned or this was opened, the first bugler of the military was still alive, and they asked her to bugle at the opening ceremony, and she did.
Wow.
So that came full circle, right? So when we look at World War II, we couldn't, you know, we try to highlight World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan, as well as our post and some of the members that are in it. So when you look here, you have Colonel Ovida Culp Hobby. She was one of the first WAC. She was actually the director of the Women's Auxiliary Corps. So, I mean, you look at her, she almost looks like she was in the Legionnaires over there in another country.
Yeah, French Foreign Legion.
This is Lieutenant Ann B. Burns. She was actually a nurse in France, and she was actually John's great aunt who served. So we try to incorporate all the connection of our families to boot if we could. For the Korean War, we represented with Colonel Ruby Bradley. Currently, she was declared or named the most decorated woman in military history from all her wars that she'd also been in, but she also received the Nightingale Award as a nurse. Again, most of these people are nurses because that's the only job that they would give us women to serve in our country, right? So, okay, here's the best learning tool yet. A year ago, I found out that there were women on the Vietnam Wall.
8 of them.
8 of them. And so when that happened, it actually brought me to tears. Because I feel that our society and our education failed us in that. Because we always talk about the men on the wall. Why don't we ever mention the women on the wall, right? So I knew a group of combat veterans who went up there for the last Rolling Thunder, and while they were at the wall, they had representatives from the Women's Memorial standing there at the wall highlighting these women. And all of a sudden I received a text, and it was their finger pointing out a woman, and they said, "Hey man, did you know?" I was so saddened that I didn't know and that nobody ever told me, and I'm a woman veteran who by heart is passionate about our service. And so this woman right here, Lieutenant Sharon Ann Lane, is one of the 8 who only was killed by direct fire. So the other ones, they were killed in Vietnam. They died either in a helicopter crash, but it wasn't due because it was shot down. So, if you will, her notoriety comes from that she was actually killed while still trying to help and save patients. Okay, this is the only picture that you can find of her, and it's very limited access of her existence, if you will. So we did highlight her on there, and I make sure that I spread that.
You know, a lot of people don't know there's a lot of chaplains on that wall too. I think there's like 16 chaplains on that wall. They think everybody was, you know, infantry, whatever. But of course, as you know, a chaplain doesn't carry a weapon.
Right.
You know, you know,
assistant does.
Yeah, but see, I've done a couple of shows. I knew about the women on the wall.
Well, if you saw, speaking of chaplains, if you saw on the first wall, that's one of the things that I wanted to reach out about, is that we do have chaplains on that wall. We have a chaplain on the wall taking care of a soldier who was wounded with his person watching him, because they don't understand that they're non-combative, but they're here to save. And that's a whole nother desire that people can't seem to understand. You don't even have a chance to fight for yourself. So being inclusive, that is a section that has also been forgotten.
Yes, that's
Not
true.
anymore here. So then we have Sergeant Leanne Hester. Sergeant Leanne Hester, she is actually still currently in the military. She's a sergeant first class now, so she's made rank. But during this picture we chose, this was actually her in Iraq in the desert receiving her Silver Star. She is the first woman since World War II to receive the Silver Star. She was a policewoman, and they were in a convoy, and they took on fire, and her sergeant at the time, who outranked her, said, "Hey, get out. Get out and fire." She says, "Aye." She gets out and they start firing, and they're trying to kill and survive, and they do. So, you know, they've asked her, "Man, what was it like?" She's like, "I was doing my job. It doesn't mean that I'm a woman or a man. I was doing my job."
I'm a soldier.
Big deal. Right, she's a soldier first. So what I like about it is if you go to the Women's Memorial, right up here, this is a walkway actually. On this walkway, there are window panes, if you will, of glass that you can see down, sort of. So when you're inside, you can look up and it reveals light. But there's etchings on there saying, and she's on there, one of her quotes saying, "I was just a woman doing my job."
There's a lady of this post, this one here, I kind of recognize her.
Yeah. So this is me. Afghanistan war. This was actually the day that I was going out with the Afghan nationals to promote women, if you will, and they asked for women military veterans to go out. So we got all dressed up, we went out with the Sec 4, and that picture just, it was a weird day that day, you know. I'm here trying to bridge gaps, but you're in fear of your life. And at one point, which was a surprise to us because we volunteered to go and meet them, they told us to ground our gear. They told me to take off my chest plate. They told me to take off my helmet. They told me to leave my weapon in order to show good faith, because they were coming to meet us with nothing. And I paused and I thought, well, I think I should have read that between the lines a little bit closely, right?
Yeah.
So we did, and I have a photo that's very sombering to me that I keep, that is all of our women's stuff all stacked up as we go in to have tea with all these security forces, the Afghan National Army, everybody pointing weapons as we're entering into this building for a meeting with these women. And I just thought,
this could be it.
You never know. So very, 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 very real day for me. But then we went ahead and we started showcasing our other members here. She was a WAC. She served 33 years in this Legion.
Wow.
And she has a little section in our meeting room of some of her memorabilia that she has donated to the Legion. So I wanted to make sure that we put her here. She's no longer with us, but she served many years as a woman that should be recognized. And then, of course, we have Legionnaires of the Year. And so let's say there's 60 or 70 men that are Legionnaires of the Year. We only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women that are Legionnaires of the Year. So what we did is we put them on here to show that we have also contributed to the history of our post, right? So we have Joan, who's also another member here, and she's actually the woman, if you want to point fingers of why I joined, she is it. Because, and I told her this and she knows this, she's Vietnam era. And I came to a meeting and I was requesting money as the CVMA for Combat Veteran Motorcycle Association. And we asked for X amount of dollars, and it was small. And then all of a sudden she stood up, raised her hand and said, "Can't we give more?" It just shocked me. We got more and a woman asked for it. You know, and so I knew right then this was going to be my home. Because if they could listen to a woman, support her, this is where I needed to be. And so I put all my energy into this place with her. This is one of our other members. The day she made chief, huge. This is her brother who was already a chief. Pinned her rank on her collar that day. That family, it was just so important. And then, you know, it was interesting because I did another talk or whatever at another area and about women in the service, and I have this print of this memorial in my house because I was there and I had the artist sign it as well. I'm big on that. And I sat for an hour with this picture on an easel, and when it came time to talk, I asked everybody, I said, how many people, because we were here to learn about women in the military, I said, how many people know what this is and where it's located?
Washington, D.C.
Out of 110 people, you'd probably get 8 that knew what that was.
Women's
so
nurse.
I had to tell them this is the Vietnam Nurse Memorial, which is a hand's throw from the wall. So we don't really know. We don't put ourselves out there.
A good friend of mine, her name is Linda Schwartz. She was the Commissioner for Veterans Affairs. Now she's in Washington, D.C. She was a big part of that. She was a nurse also in Vietnam. And when she came back home, they lost compression in the airplane for some reason. It opened up. She suffered brain damage. Yeah, and when she got off the plane, she couldn't recognize her own child. Wow. But she went to the VA, and now she's very big in the Veterans Administration down in Washington.
Wow. The other thing I want to highlight with Carrie and this wall is that when Carrie and I were working together, it was so fluid that we bounced our ideas off each other. You know, it was fun working with her. We did a lot of research. That's how I know so much. But like when she came with this idea of the start of the wall to blend it, she had somebody there holding a flag and a weapon, and I thought to myself, wait, I bet you I know somebody that could actually fill that. So this is actually my friend, HM1 Davis, who I served with on the Comfort, and she's an MA. She's a military police there for the Navy, and that's her, African American. She's now since retired, and she just feels honored and blessed that she is on our wall of women. So I thank them for that. But before I go, I want you to pan really, really slowly because we thought about this very clearly. As I talked about on the wall, that there are panels that if you take the upper deck and you meditate or whatever you want to do, you can see quotes. And we chose the quote at the bottom, and this is actually on the memorial of the Women's Memorial. And if you need to, I'll read it for you.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
It says, "Let the generations know that women in uniform also guaranteed their freedom, that our resolve was just as great as the brave men who stood among us. And with the victory, our hearts were just as full and beat just as fast, that the tears fell just as hard for those we left behind." And here's what's so pertinent about that. This was by a lieutenant in World War II. And I still feel this to this day. And so what that means to me with this wall is that we need to educate so we can make our women feel welcomed as well and that we had served. And so I thank you for showcasing these murals.
Well, I must tell you one thing. I have a friend whose name is Bill Suki, and it's a very good friend of mine and also our camera person. And he did a documentary on the WASP, women Air Force service pilots who shuttled the planes back and forth, and they were volunteer, and when they said, that's it, you're out of here, they got no benefits. They had to fight for their benefits. And it's a great documentary.
I see that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because, you know, one of the things I took away from that same documentary is that men were trained to be pilots. And when the women came in to fill their spots during a time of need, they had to come trained. They went to school, they became a pilot. So the talk about the inadequacies of the two, these women came in to fill spots, had to get educated first, come back to the military and say, I am here. They became pilots, and then after the war, they shuttled them off and said, thank you, no thank you.
Yeah.
And so, yes, so they have actually now got their Congressional Medal of Honor and all these things for recognizing, because at one point, you know, they were just saying that, let's just say in the past 10 years, first women pilot. And these women are like, okay, time out.
Yep.
I've had it. We can't take it anymore. No, we were the first women pilots. And that's what this represents, is that we have been here. We have not been acknowledged. I wanted to share it with everybody and to let them know that, you know, don't ask us, thank us. That's my motto nowadays. We served, and, you know, we're happy to have done so.
Well, I'm glad you gave us the talk about this, because we really want this video that we're doing here to get out to the school system,
Yes.
to the kids, you know. And I'm going to leave you one more thing about the Lady Wasp.
Sure.
The B-29, they had problems with it, with the crankshaft. It was magnesium, and it would catch fire. Nobody wanted to fly that plane, so they said they fixed it. They fixed it. They says, well, no, I don't know. Yeah, we got one coming in. Look, and it landed. And the men were all standing there. It was a total crew of women that flew it in. So that's a little story that you might want to. Yeah.
Very nice.
But I flew on a B-29. You know, it was a great airplane. Of course, that's not a B-29. But yeah. So thank you guys for having us here, sharing your story.
Yeah. We appreciate you coming, and Carrie, thanks to you for coming out and joining us.
Making our post.
Yeah, come on over here. Get back in the picture. The artist.
Making our place better.
As you can tell, we're passionate about what we do. We want to make a difference, and we'll be here throughout. So thank you for showcasing us, taking the time to come out and see our murals, and because we've been wanting to share them, you know, and I would encourage people to come look at them close. You know, there's pictures and you can see it on video, but seeing it, be able to see how she took the texture of that wall and made it look just as smooth as this one.
Well, hopefully when things
incredible.
settle down with this virus and stuff, you reach out to the community, have kids come in and give them the tour.
Well, on top of that, we're also in the process of doing prints with the artist. So the art copyrighted, but she will sign a few that will be available hopefully by the end of this year, that, you know, will be able to be purchased and help, and all the proceeds will go to the American Legion.
Okay, and you have, it's going to be down the road, but you have to keep checking the American Legion post?
Yes.
Website.
http // American Legion 35 mtdora.org.
Okay.
Don't forget the org.
Check us out.
Well, listen, it's been great to be here. I'm glad the president from the Eagles, who's very supportive, the Eagles are very supportive, came down, and his beautiful daughter, who's his wife, is here, Elizabeth. And you guys have done a fantastic job. It was really a privilege to be interviewing you, all of you. And my dear, you're fantastic.
Thank you.
The very first one, I want it autographed. I'm buying it. But I have a way of saying goodbye, and I think some of you guys know this. If you're a veteran, you salute like this. If you're non-veteran, you salute like that. But to all our veterans out there, active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time.